Welcome to Locales Unknown. This podcast gives you the tools you need to choose your next travel destination and the tips you want to be able to explore like a local. Here are your hosts, Chris and Winfield.
Today we are here with Sahar, and we are going to be talking about Morocco. Thank you for coming on and taking the time. So tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sahar. I'm from Morocco. I lived a good part of my life in Morocco, but I moved to UAE and Middle East in general a few years back, and I'm very happy to present my country.
Tell us a little bit about some of the background. Obviously, there's quite a bit of history, which we don't delve too much into typically, and we don't do politics either, but I have...
Why not? You're American.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly. What the heck, right?
That's probably why, because too many Americans do it anyway, so we're trying to be different over here.
I agree. Every time I go to an American gathering, I have to pick a side. Are you Republican or whatever? And I'm like, I am Moroccan. I don't know.
We could probably cover that after we end the recording here, but we'll stick to just the travel and Morocco and the beauty of everything. And I know Winfield was about to ask you some of the history, but I can tell you, growing up, my experience and a lot of my inspiration came from Anthony Bourdain. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but yeah, definitely more of that fringe type traveler. And he held Morocco in such high regard in anything that he wrote and always put it in this light of mystique. And there's this unique aura. So I'm super excited to be able to talk to you about this. I have a bunch of questions to come.
Sure. So like you said, Morocco is a very unique country. The history of Morocco is quite rich because we were colonized by two different countries, and before that we've always been a kingdom, and we had a lot of influence from Asia and Middle East. You know, the Silk Road ends in Morocco. It starts from China and it ends in Morocco. So everything, the spices, the fabric, the culture, the music, all these travelers, when they were traveling, they stop in Morocco and they bring all of the things that they had with them, and they try to exchange them in a country. And there was a lot of cultural exchange happening during the 15th century in Morocco. And when the French and the Spanish colony came in, they brought their European side. So the beautiful thing about Morocco is that you will be in a country where everything is modern, but at the same time authentic. You can understand the culture of the country, but people will speak to you French. So there is a very beautiful nuance in the country that makes you feel that, oh, I am in a very rich country, that every time you speak to a person, they tell you a story different from the other because they come from a different region in Morocco, or they have different influences, basically. And I will add one more thing. I come from a city that was colonized by the Portuguese. So we have a little bit of the Portuguese that came to two cities in Morocco, and they were like, okay, those people are so crazy. We're out. We can't make it here. So they left. They didn't stay so much, which is something that a lot of people, they don't know about Morocco. We were colonized briefly by the Portuguese colony, and then they just left. But they built beautiful scenery in my city. And that's a little bit about Morocco.
And what's the name of your city?
It's called El Jadida. It's 1 hour drive from Casablanca. So Casablanca, let's say it's the economic capital. Rabat is the capital. And El Jadida is on the coast. So it has a little bit of vibe into it. It's a small city, not too many people, and it's really nice and beautiful.
Very nice.
I guess the Portuguese hightailed it over to Cabo Verde, huh? They had their their fill.
Fun fact, if you read the history of what happened in that era, they ran away to Brazil, and they built a city called Mazagao, right? You have a city called Mazagao in Brazil. So
I'm not familiar with where it is, but yes.
So the old city, the name of the old city of El Jadida was Mazagan. So people who named it, the Portuguese, they named it Mazagan. And then when they ran away from us Moroccans, because we're lovely people, they just took a ship and they landed in Brazil.
Well, that's quite a not a stone's throw away from the region at all. So
they really wanted to get away from Morocco.
Yeah, exactly. So you hit on
people. I don't know why.
So you hit on a couple of great points there, though, in terms of not only the diversity of the colonization experience, and even prior to that, with, of course, exchange, bartering, all of the systems that really predate the monetary system. But something that struck me, more recent history, maybe 10 years ago, is that Morocco during the Arab Spring was relatively peaceful. Now, I don't know the ins and outs because, of course, I wasn't on the ground, and I'm curious what your thoughts are about that. But it seemed as if the political turbulence in the region, of course, Tunisia went through a revolution. Almost all of North Africa had some sort of political upheaval. How did Morocco maintain its pristine image to the outside world of stability, but also encouraging reforms in certain areas?
Well, the answer is very simple. We have a king that is very highly regarded in the country. People, they really appreciate that we are a kingdom, that we have a king that is protecting us, and it's not going south anytime soon. So that's the main reason. I wouldn't say that we are a unicorn in the North Africa and we don't have problems. The governments, there is a lot of corruption and we are still trying to make our country better. But that was the main pillar that make it that we don't have any issues, the similar ones, unfortunately, that happen to our neighboring countries. The other reason is that we have really strong alliances with Europe and the US, and that also protect us from the country just people going out and creating chaos, let's say.
Sure. No, exactly. And I think that's a key point, that not only within the country you have a very progressive and relatively open-minded monarch, and there were some right away there were some devolution more to the legislative body and things of that nature. So reforms, as you said, were incremental relative to the situation. So I think that's,
and mind you, the other countries, they started a revolution because they had really pressing issues. There was a lot of corruption. There was hunger. There was a lot of fights. They didn't have any stability in their system. We have corruption, but we don't have people going to jail for random reasons. But other countries, they do, without naming which one of them. But so we don't have as much major issues or social issues that will lead people to go out in the streets and protest.
There we go, talking about politics.
Oh my God.
Okay,
so let's speak about Morocco.
I'm just kidding around. And I think it's so important, to know at least a brief part of history of any place that you go. It's an understanding of people, of why the culture is the way it is, and also to have your sensitivities. You don't want to come barreling in thinking that it's okay to do certain things. So to bring it down to the ground level, I know that you have a lot of European tourists, some Americans coming over. I'm curious, with such a rich culture and the pride of the Moroccan people, how do you feel like that European influence blends in? Do you find that the country is kind of divided north to south? More Europeans are visiting the north. Like, how does that really blend together?
No. I feel like you will find it very funny because you will meet a lot of Europeans or foreigners who speaks Moroccan. So sometimes you just meet French people who lived in Morocco for a longer period. They're much more fluent, and we have a big Chinese community as well because we have I think, I'm not sure, don't quote me on that, but we have a trade agreement with China. So we have a lot of Chinese people who come and set base in the country, and you'll find that people, they actually speak Chinese.
Interesting. Do you find that to be a relatively new adjustment, or I should say trend, that more Asian cultures or Chinese are coming over to Morocco?
Yeah, I think with social media, there was a lot of exposure to the country, and people, they started getting to know where is Morocco and what is it about. And the funny thing is that we have a lot of Moroccans who go study abroad. It's very common in my country that people, they don't stay after high school. They don't stay in Morocco. They try to explore the world, and we are very much vagabond, let's say, as a nation. So you'll find Moroccans everywhere, including Asia, and I think that's how they get to know who we are. But coming back to your question, the blending is very easy. It depends on the appetite of the person who comes to Morocco, either to visit or to stay for a few years or so. People, they are used to have foreigners around them. Even in the most remote village, they will say, "Oh yeah, that's Patrick from Belgium. That's our foreigner of the village." So they don't find it bizarre. Nobody will be staring at you like, "How are you doing here?" We're very much blended and used to having people. Yeah.
And that's great, because it kind of ties into the hospitality. And I must admit that I don't want to paint the entire Arab world with a broad brush, because obviously each country is different. There are many subtleties, so we don't want to. We try to avoid speaking in generalities. But when I was in the Middle East and also in Tunisia and Egypt, the hospitality of the Arab people collectively is second to none in the world. And I think you just touched on that a little bit there, in terms of, even if you're in the most remote village, if you have a resident foreigner or something like that, everyone will know who they are. They'll interact. They'll be invited for meals or for celebrations or for festivals. So that's really important in terms of integration into a societal framework.
Yeah, correct. And also in the big cities, we accommodate also to, let's say, the cuisine or the needs of the people that visit us. It's a Muslim country, but people, they think because you are in a Muslim country, even here in Dubai where I live, people, they have this image that, oh, you cannot drink alcohol and you cannot eat pork. The supermarket downstairs have a alcohol shop and a pork section, and it's similar in Morocco. There is, not in all supermarkets, obviously, but if you go to the city center where there is, a concentration of foreigners where they live, so they accommodate supermarkets with those kind of food. They import even brands from Europe, so people, they don't feel too homesick, let's say.
Yeah, I love that. Obviously, more into the tourist centers, as you were saying, or you kind of mentioned foreigners living there. Is there a lot of expat communities within Morocco or in the cities as well?
Yeah. In the big cities, you'll find a lot of expats. Actually, for example, it depends. So, for example, in Marrakesh, you will find mostly retirees. So people, after they had a very stressful life in the US, they come and retire in Morocco. And because the cost of living is quite cheaper, and to get a house in a nice neighborhood, it's also not too expensive. So people, they use that. So it's not a bad place to retire at, and people, they speak quite a lot of languages in Morocco, so they can live a proper life. In the other cities like Rabat or Casablanca, you will find a younger generation. Big companies, they hire expats, and it's quite common as well. For example, in my city, Al Jadida, we have a big area or a big company. I just forgot how it's called in English. My brain is glitching. But they hire people from India, Pakistan, Senegal. We have a big community, and so we have a quite substantial expat community in Morocco.
Of course, we always want to talk about giving some travel tips to the people interested in getting over to Morocco. That's our inspiration here. So you hit upon the cost of living and just the cost of getting around. Could you give us a ballpark as far as how much someone would want to bring to Morocco for, let's say, about a week, budget-wise?
It depends how do you want to spend it. So let's say in Morocco, if you go to local shops or local restaurants, let's say, you can have a tagine, which is our main meal, for $5. Or you can have a sandwich for $2. So it depends. Or you can have like a whole Michelin chef restaurant for 200. There is a bracket. If you are more into going to street food and local restaurants and all of that experience, which I personally enjoy, and we have really great food, so you don't need to go to fancy places, you will have to spend maybe, I will say maybe $50 for food and another 50 for transportation and housing. Also, not too fancy of a hotel, but a nice proper 3-star, 4 stars, or an Airbnb as well. Yeah, and transportation, we have trams in the big cities, we have trains, we have something called CTM, which is the buses, and they're very good. I mean, it's not as trashy as you might imagine. In some places, yes, but the main areas, no.
I think the same can be said about anywhere you go. You know, you're going to have those different layers and levels for sure.
There is a peculiar way of transportation. If you go to villages, remote places, there is no way of transportation. They use donkeys, and it's very common. You will just find someone who will tell you, just hop on the donkey, and he will guide you through the village. Obviously, we condone animal abuse here, if that's real.
So how would I go about getting to one of those remote villages? Not to name anyone in particular, but you did say the hospitality throughout the country, especially outside the cities, is so welcoming and enthusiastic. I would love to go and see what life is like outside of the traditional, urban sprawl areas.
Yeah, I highly recommend that, because you will find a lot of families who enjoy also hosting. Even if they don't speak the language, you will find people who will welcome you and share with you their food, and their food is amazing, because that's the core Moroccan identity. They express it by their food, they express it with their music, and they have, in Morocco, we have something each day of the week. We have a souk. So the souk moves from village to village depending on the region, each day of the week. And on those souks, you can go and then you find the random things. You can find dancers. You will find people who sell something that you have never seen, probably in a developed country, but it should not shock you in a third world country. So it's fun and more festive.
So is a souk almost like a mobile market?
Yeah, so there is the culture here is that all the merchant or people who sell whatever, vegetables or anything, they move from, each region has their own weekly souk. So the neighboring villages, let's say, they have the weekly souk, and that mobile souk move from the village to another, so they can supply them with whatever groceries they need, give them a little bit of entertainment. And yeah, so the village, basically every once a week they wait for that experience, and they all go there, and you find all the mommies and kids. They say, oh, we're going to the souk this morning, and that's why there is a very warm feeling to experience those things, because regardless of if you speak the language or not, the energy will take you.
I don't know about you, Winfield, but that sounds a lot better than our farmers markets over here in the U.S.
I was going to say that's a tagline right there. The energy will take you, because that's really apropos, especially in this case. But you were talking about earlier regarding different parts of the country and budget as well. And one thing in terms of my personal travel journey is that I've always wanted to have more time for Morocco. I've never had a block where I can just say, okay, I want to set 3 or 4 weeks aside, because I feel like it's a small country relatively, but there's a lot to see. My grandfather during World War II was actually stationed in Salé, and that's something that I've kind of always wanted to start my journey there and work westward / southwest. As you mentioned earlier, there's Tangiers, Fes, Casablanca, Marrakesh, Rabat, the Atlas Mountains, which Chris was talking about in terms of remote villages. So what do you recommend in terms of an itinerary that's, let's say, relying more on public transportation? And how much time would you say that somebody who wants to have an overview of the country would need for planning purposes?
That's a great question. Because, by the way, just side note, Saleh is not too far from the area where I live, the city Al Jadida. So, but that's the middle of Morocco. What I will recommend is to start from the top, from the north, and then move your way down. Train is a great way to commute in Morocco, because the train takes you from Tangier, which is the highest peak of Morocco. Well, the highest is Gibraltar, but that's another topic. So from Tangier, from Tangier to Marrakesh. So you can do a train trip from Tangier to Marrakesh, and then take the bus from Marrakesh to the desert. And there is the bus in Morocco is called CTM, Charlie Tango Mama, and that's the safest one because it has Wi-Fi, it has AC, it's run by the government. So if you lose something, it's like a structured way of transportation, the same way for the train. If you go there is other train or other buses happening in Morocco, but you need to speak the local language, and they might take advantage of you because the prices are not fixed and not written anywhere. But for the CTM, you have a ticket with your seat assigned, so it's very organized, and it covers from Marrakesh to the desert, Dakhla, which is also the last city in Morocco. Is it? No, wait. There is another city after Morocco. No. Okay, I'm glitching again. No, I think the last city in Morocco is Dakhla. Yeah, here we go.
And again, not to get political here, but Western Sahara, kind of a question mark in terms of whatever the case may be internationally. Is it part of Morocco? And if so, how do you get there?
It's funny because my boyfriend also asked the same question recently, and I don't know why everybody has the same question, but I can get it because in the map it looks that we have a border in between, but there is no border. There is no differentiation between any. I don't know how to explain. I don't know myself what's going on in that map, but people from the desert, we call them Hassani, and they have their own dialects. They don't speak the common Moroccan. They are us. We are them, and we are the same country. We love them. They love us, and every year they agree to elect the king as the new chief of the country. So we're good. There's no problems.
As you said, looking at a map, you think, oh, that's a hard border. But then we have to put into context, this is the Sahara Desert. What kind of borders are we talking about?
Exactly. Camels in between, like there is no...
Right, exactly. Is there a floodplain? Like what's the deal?
No, even if they wanted, they cannot do a wall. Only Mr. Trump can build a wall.
And on that note,
right. Chris is going to bring us back down to earth.
Well, you mentioned how to get from place to place with the CTM, and that's very useful for sure. Now, I know, obviously, the larger places, so Tangier, Casablanca, Marrakesh. Can you shed some light on what the difference is between these three places? Like, would one location attract a certain type of traveler versus another place? Obviously, they're probably a little bit different.
Correct. So I will just look at the map so we can look at the Moroccan map together, and I will explain to you geographically.
Great. Well, keep the map open because I wanted to talk to you about the Atlas Mountains as well.
Oh wow!
Mount Toubkal.
I will talk about that because my explanation is actually related to the Atlas Mountains.
Great.
So if you look at the map of Morocco, you will see that the Atlas Mountains, they start from okay, I don't have it here. So they start from a city almost close to the borders with Algeria, and then there is the middle Atlas, and then there is the lower Atlas, right? So the area where there is the borders with Algeria, which is the north of Morocco, this is everything that you can imagine water activities. People, they come for water activities. The Mediterranean is very beautiful. They come for other green stuff that I will not mention in the podcast, but it's a known area for that. It's a beautiful region because in Morocco we have a color scheme for each region, and that north region is the houses are supposed to be blue and white. You cannot paint your house purple tomorrow. So the color scheme needs to be approved by the municipality before you paint your house. And that area, the north of Morocco, is basically white and blue. You cannot do otherwise, or any shade of blue or gray, let's say. And then there is the middle, which is the middle Atlas. The middle Atlas, it's more, let's say, desert activities. There is a lot of movie productions that's set based there. And we have actually a place that is called, let me just remember the name.
King's Landing.
No. I have it somewhere. Sorry.
No, King's Landing was in Croatia.
Exactly.
Dubrovnik, I don't know why I thought. Oh, yeah, in Dubrovnik. I don't know why I thought Morocco.
Maybe a similar scape in terms of the.
Oh, I found it. So it's
scenery.
Called Eight bin Dahu. It's called Eight bin Dahu. It's a village that was carved in the mountains themselves, and it's a UNESCO. How you say a UNESCO location?
Yeah, UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Exactly, World Heritage Site. And it's really beautiful because now there is nobody there. It's not habitated. There is just random tourists that go there, but it's very beautiful to see. So this is the kind of atmosphere you will have in that area. And obviously we have Marrakesh and we have Casablanca, where there is more upscale scenery. You will see a lot of luxurious restaurants, hotels. It's very modern, let's say. And then you go to the bottom part, which is, again, the lower Atlas and the desert, the Western Sahara. And this is where you will have a lot of people who come for surfing. And how you say this sport where you have this wind?
Kite surfing?
Kite surfing. Mm-hmm.
Why am I stupid today?
Not at all.
Not at all. Your English is perfect.
Thank you. So yeah, so a lot of people, they do kite surfing. Actually, we have competitions that happen there in Dakhla every year for water sports and surf. So that's why I said if you fly to Morocco, you can land either in Tangier or any area in the north of Morocco and then start your journey from there. And the funny thing is that when you move through the Atlas, people, they think that Berber or Amazigh, they are similar. Berber is a different dialect than Amazigh, than Hassani. So there is three kinds of original languages and original people in Morocco. And each area of the Atlas, they speak their own language plus Arabic.
Mm. Interesting. And in terms of language, getting around, I know we touched on this a little bit. You said that French is quite helpful. Arabic or a dialect thereof would be most people's native language. Would you say English is relatively accessible outside of the major tourist areas, or not really?
I would say no, because English is not taught in schools as much as French and Spanish, let's say. So that's why it could be a little bit difficult, but it's not impossible. People, they can communicate. If you know a few words just to get by, people, they accommodate. There is no, it's not France. I know it's, people will hate me for this, but French people, they are very, if you don't speak French, they will look at you like, what are you talking about? But Morocco, you can do sign language with them. They will be fine.
Exactement. Exactly.
Exactly.
You hit the nail on the head there. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the hospitality aspect as well, is that even if you have a little bit of trouble in understanding one another, that there's still that underlying premise of that you're welcome and that you're here to for the right reasons and to experience have a local experience.
Exactly.
Sure. It's also a two-way street, though, as well. Coming into someone else's country, you want to show the respect of at least knowing the basics to show you're putting forth effort, that you're respecting their culture, not just having them accommodate to yours. So
exactly. Not everybody speaks English, although it's shocking for Americans.
Really?
Well, not for us.
I'm going to come back to that.
Fun fact, actually, when you go to Morocco, I just remember this because I see it a lot in villages. There is always, if they don't know how to speak your language, they will always ask someone to bring the teacher of the school or someone from whatever, just come and translate, help this lad, get him sorted. So don't worry for that.
I'm going to bring it back to that UNESCO World Heritage Site. And when I said King's Landing, for all you Game of Thrones fans out there, you corrected me right off the bat, I'm sure. But a couple scenes were filmed in Morocco, Astapor and then Yunkai, I believe. And then one of those was actually at that UNESCO World Heritage Site. So it's interesting that you brought that up.
It's gibberish to me because I've never seen Game of Thrones. Sorry.
Okay.
Ditto.
I just know that it's a great place to see.
Well, hopefully there's a couple people out there listening that are shaking their head yes. So I've seen it more than once, maybe.
There is other places where they film. There is a production in Ouarzazate, which is a city not so far from what you saw at Ben Dahoud. So Ouarzazate, it's also a city in the mountains. And they have a big production, site where they film a lot of movies. And there is a lot of, sometimes you go there and you find a random crew. I saw Nicole Kidman once in real life. She's quite tall as a woman. And it's a cool place to see as well.
I had a question about overall culture and just the way of life in Morocco, because there's definitely parts of the world that are more night owls, and it's just by tradition and the way things work there. I mean, I know some places that dinner time is 11 p.m. and some places here in the U.S. 11 p.m. you're sound asleep. So can you talk to us a little bit about what the normal hours are for how to find the scenes, or when people usually come out, what time dinner is, that type of thing?
Well, in the mornings, for me, I can speak for my favorite meal of the day, the breakfast. If you go around 7 a.m., you go to any local, you will see something very weird. We call the local shops or a small shop that sells sandwiches or whatever, we call it a snack. So whenever you go to a shop and you see a sign called snack, it means that they sell small bites, sandwiches, and breakfasty stuff. So this is where I enjoy going, and I have my morning breakfast. Usually you'll see a lot of people going out and eating breakfast together before going to work around 7 a.m. But the dinner time is very random. We're a wild country. So you finish work at 5, people go for drinks after that or whatever, and then you'll find someone having dinner at midnight. And that's just how we are. We're wild.
That's more my speed.
I'm the morning person over here. I know that at least Tangier is known for its cafe culture. Is that kind of sprawled out across the rest of the
everywhere?
Country?
The whole country is a cafe. I mean, during COVID, people were ballistic because they couldn't even have this little cafe experience, and it's very popular. It's very funny that you noticed that, but yeah, we're cafe people.
So is the cafe the same type of place that sells the snacks, or are those two different?
It depends. So you will just have to confirm if they have food inside the restaurants or only drinks. So sometimes they say cafe restaurant or cafe snack. It means yes, they have. If they say only cafe, so it means only drinks.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different. A lot of our listeners are in the US. So when we think of cafe or coffee, it's a quick grab and go. Usually we complain if we have to wait too long, but in other cultures, it's more sit down, relax, get a comfortable seat because you're going to be here for hours and enjoy the experience. So I know that that's very popular, throughout. I only knew about it in Tangier. It doesn't surprise me that it's, throughout the entire country.
Yeah, I think the listeners, they also have to understand that in most of other cities or the normal neighborhood, forget about Starbucks and all of the mainstream brands, there is no to-go drinks. So if you want to drink something, you take your time and sit down and appreciate that coffee that someone made for you. So you won't find someone giving you a to-go cup. They will be surprised.
A slow life.
Exactly.
Enjoying it, yeah.
And that's a perfect segue into the cuisine, because growing up in small town Virginia, had this restaurant in my town called Fes. So the owners were Moroccan, and we used to love going there. It was a real cultural experience because we at that time we didn't have too many ethnic restaurants in terms of people from other cultures, and I just remember those huge plates of couscous and lamb and beautifully prepared eggplant, and sitting on you had tables on the floor, you had tables kind of a normal table setup, but also the belly dancing entertainment. I remember as a child just getting up there with the belly dancer, and it was quite all kinds of nostalgic memories. So I guess the question is, with the food, obviously you can get everything from local cuisine to French and other options, but what do you recommend for people that might be a little bit more adventurous and that want to try some local delicacies?
Well, in Morocco, you can. The thing that is very particular about the Moroccan cuisine, and I'm telling you, I'm not saying this because it's my country, the flavors are very unique. I've traveled during my previous life as cabin crew, and I went to many countries where I can relate to the curry flavors in India, or the spicy food in Asia or China, or Italian cuisine is very Mediterranean, let's say. But in Morocco, I don't understand how I can duplicate it somewhere else. I couldn't find the same flavors in any other cuisine. Somehow we managed to create our own cultural culinary culture, and it's amazing because sometimes I just have food from a Moroccan restaurant, and it makes me feel really good that I'm not homesick anymore. It's just I got my little tagine and I'm feeling great. And what I would recommend, forget about the couscous. You will have couscous everywhere nowadays. That is my favorite dish, which is called rfissa, rfissa. So it's made with. Have you ever had the Moroccan pancakes? You know the bread that is very flat that you eat.
Delicious.
Exactly. So imagine that, but in a very, very thin layers, and they make it with lentils and an onions too, and chicken, and it's very rich and flavorful. So this is my favorite thing I can eat forever. And usually this dish they make for women who just got or just had a baby, and I just requested because I'm a baby.
Is that the dish that it's almost like crispy thin, almost like a baklava, but it's more savory inside? Am I thinking of the right one?
Yeah, so this is the pastilla, right?
Okay.
So pastilla, you have either chicken and almond inside, or you have seafood. My favorite one is seafood. So this is one of my favorite two dishes. Tagines, they need to explore. For example, if you go to Ouarzazate, they are known there for argan oil. And if you go there, you have to try the goat tagine, because goats in that region, they eat leaves of argan tree, so their meat tastes like argan, and it's very the taste is very how you say, nutty, like nuts. I don't know how to say it, but it's
Right.
very, it's very, very strong and very, very delicious. It's not strong in a way that it's disgusting, but it's very delicious. So that's my recommendation if you go there, because they have this specialty. In Marrakesh, they have tangia, which is slow cooked lamb. They put it in a clay pot, and we have ovens that they bury them for 6 hours or even overnight. So you just come back. The lady gives the guy who works in this public oven the clay pot. Tell him, okay, prepare it for me. I'll come back tomorrow at 12 p.m. She comes, pick it up, go home, prepare the food and the table, and it's yummy.
Seems to be an underlying theme of just slow, like enjoy it, take your time, appreciation of all of it. And that's something that, at least for me as an American, I wrestle with a lot of the times, because we're living in the fast lane all the time. So it's important to know going over, take the time.
You have to take your time. Exactly. Sure. And just a disclaimer, we are not a very much vegan, vegetarian friendly country. We eat a lot of meat. So there will be a lot of options that include animal products. And if you don't speak the local language, it's not their fault. They just don't know. The vegan concept is not super present in Morocco, so they wouldn't know how they could accommodate to your palate or to your food.
Do you find even in the major cities that more vegan options are popping up?
No, in major cities, I'm talking if you go around and you're not in the major cities. In the major cities, obviously, you go, I'm vegetarian or whatever, you type in Google vegan restaurants, you'll find plenty of options. But if you go to a neighborhood village or something that is less poshy, let's say, you won't find much.
So outside the cities, it's all couscous for you.
No, surprisingly, I will tell you. So outside the city, they mainly eat tagines. Couscous, you only eat it on Fridays. So if you go to any restaurant outside of the city, you won't find couscous available on the menu. You will see that it's written Friday couscous available on Fridays. So it's a cultural thing that you eat couscous only on Fridays. If you go to a touristic restaurant, obviously they will put couscous every day for you in the menu, but usually we eat it on Fridays because it's a gathering dish. So you make a big dish of couscous and you invite the family, the neighbors, and everybody eat together.
So are the rest of the dishes usually set up in family style? I know a lot of Middle Eastern, traditional cuisines are more set that way, where everyone just kind of picks.
You eat with your hand in Morocco. You grab a piece of bread. You're a grown man. Dip that hand in the tagine.
Sure. My grandmother came from Lebanon, so I grew up with Lebanese food. So we're very familiar with the family style, taking the time to prepare amazing meals that are huge, and you just enjoy yourself and pick from here and there. It's very different, in America. Don't touch my dish. Completely opposite.
But
it's great.
The story behind it is that people, when they share food together, it shows that you are including them in your circle. You trust them. So they feel that we're not strangers anymore. We had food together. So it's a very sentimental, let's say, cultural thing, let's say. But don't worry if you want to eat with a fork or whatever with cutleries. Even in the villages, they can accommodate for that. You just say fourchette, and they will be happy to give it to you. They're not so crazy about the eat with your hands. Be a man.
and in terms of drinks, obviously quite a few fruit juices and options of that nature. But does Morocco produce any wine? And if so, is that only allowed in certain areas, or what's the kind of the cultural paradigm with that?
We have wine production. I've never tried Moroccan wine, to be honest with you, because I I've never been interested in drinking Moroccan wine. I don't know. I'm very racist in that sense, but I have a very specific grape type that I like.
Only French.
The colonizers, they did that to my brain.
Exactly.
No, I've never tried Moroccan wine, but we do have wine production, and obviously you can find it only in the big cities. You won't find any of it outside of maybe the capital or the supermarkets that are in the neighbors or the expat neighborhoods.
Right, exactly. And that's one thing that really surprised me too when I went to Tunisia and Egypt, is that they had relatively quite a bit of domestic wine production. So when I was there, I was just drinking Tunisian or Egyptian wine, which I had never, anywhere I'd been in the world, heard of or even knew that it was available. So I guess there's not an export market for it, but it was interesting.
I'm not sure about the export market, but we do have a local market for it. I mean, people, they drink alcohol in Morocco. It's not really a taboo topic. So they supply the demand, but I guess the import of alcohol in Morocco is quite expensive because there is high taxes on import items. So that's why the local production started to supply local demand.
Is there a tea culture kind of in the late afternoon, early evening?
Yeah.
I know that. Okay.
So in Morocco, you have to be very careful because our tea usually is served very sweet. So unless you want to be high on sugar rush for the rest of the day, you just have to tell them no sugar or sugar on the side. So you have full control of the drink. Otherwise, you will be drinking it like the traditional way if you like to try it, but it's very sweet.
No, indeed. I've had that mistake in other places as well. And it's a kind of a beautiful little cup, not necessarily a cup and saucer type concept. And then I take a sip and it's oh wow, that tastes a little bit like cardamom or hibiscus, but that's a lot of sugar.
Yeah, exactly. And if you go, for example, to have a tea or just an afternoon break, we have shops that sell only Moroccan sweets in most of the cities. There's always an area where they have sweets, or even the restaurant itself or the cafe. They can serve you small little biscuits or Moroccan little nibbles to enjoy with the tea.
Petit four, Moroccan style.
Petit four. The petit four is different. On the I don't know how you call them, but petit four is more creamy and more rich. Moroccan is dry and actually no, we have honey infused stuff. But...
Well, as always, we're getting hungry just talking about all of this and thirsty talking about all of these things. Let's go ahead and move into our signature lightning round, where we're going to ask you 10 questions to round out the episode. So are you ready?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So one wish, what would it be?
I would like to retire young so I can enjoy all of the activities and the passions that I have in life. I want to hit the break at 40 and then just be the hippie grandma on the beach sipping a mojito with a bikini. So that's my life goal.
Now you're speaking our language.
Yeah.
What country do you want to visit the most and why?
Well, I would like to, it's not a country, but it's a continent, Latin America or the whole region, because I've never been there. I've been everywhere else except there. So that's the last place in my bucket list.
South America or Central America or both?
Well, both.
Okay.
Latin America in general will be an interesting place.
Anywhere in particular in Latin America, if you had to pick an order?
No, not really. Honestly, not really. I would be equally happy to visit all of them.
Awesome.
What's one place or thing in Morocco that you would still really like to do?
I like to go to the Moroccan desert and visit Dakhla, which is the city that I mentioned earlier. That is known for the beaches and surfing. So that's one place that I want to visit because I have never had the chance to go there. So it's one place that I would love to go to.
That sounds lovely. And what's the strangest thing you've eaten?
Oh, I had the brain by mistake. A veal. I was in Paris, and although I speak the language, I don't know, I was too hungry, and the guy was too impatient to answer my questions. So I just saw veau, and I didn't read the rest of the veau situation. So, and
Veau
then,
de crin, huh?
yeah, I had it, and I was like, this. I have a very particular textures. Let's say it's not a phobia, but I hate certain textures, like tofu, for example. I couldn't eat it if you paid me. So I was eating that. I'm like, doesn't taste normal, and it was a brain fried.
Did you finish it?
No, I did not. I ran away from the restaurant because
I was going to say, did you send it back? Even worse in France, because they would hit the ceiling.
They will be so offended, and I will be like in the news. That little Moroccan who doesn't understand the French cuisine. Oh la la! How dare you?
Right, exactly. What's your favorite thing about Morocco?
Oh, the food and the vibe. We're very funny people. I mean, look at me. I laugh for no reason. So people are funny. People are very, very social. You will have people talking to you in the street, even if they don't understand the language. Just laugh and just be in the vibe. Don't be uptight when you travel in general. Just don't take everybody and everyone as a threat just because they don't speak your language or you don't understand them. Some people are just vibing and just go along with it.
That's great advice. Couldn't agree more.
Thank you.
Common theme on the show. Everyone's just out trying to enjoy their life, take care of their family, and
exactly. And some people, they're just happy to see foreigners in their country. They're like, okay, let me show him some good mood, some hospitality. And some people, they express it differently. So it doesn't mean that they're trying to harm you. It's just different culture.
What's the must-see attraction in Morocco?
I will say Chefchaouen. It's a city in the north of Morocco, and a lot of people. I mean, this is where you're gonna see all the Instagram models laying down. But go out of the city, go to the neighboring villages, and see more of the local markets and all of that. It's a very beautiful place, and you can go to the beach. It's not too far, so it's a nice area to visit.
And what is one tip that you have for travelers? I know we just had a great one there a couple questions ago, but anything else that you can think of that might be of interest to travelers in Morocco specifically?
Yeah, so other than be nice and be respectful, I would like to tell people to do their research as well, because forget about the local culture. You have to also understand that some people, maybe they will try to charge you more, try to negotiate, and have an idea of what do you want to do. So you go to a shop, you want to buy something specific, don't buy it immediately. Just go on the internet, because the internet has everything. So just go on the internet, go to any place, any restaurant, tell them, okay, I saw this dress, I like it, and they charge me this price. Do you think it's a correct price? Ask a guy, the waiter in the restaurant that you go to. They can help you. So don't get scammed, because people, they get scammed and they get upset and it's like, oh, Moroccans, they're all scammers. We're not. We take advantage sometimes, but if you allow us as well, you have to do your research. That's my advice.
I wanted to ask earlier, because some cultures are more of a negotiation culture, where
we
it's
love
normal to go back and forth rather than just have that set price. So that holds true for Morocco as well. Don't be offended if people go back and forth.
Yeah, so if you have a budget, that's why I'm saying you do a research. You have to know the prices of things in Morocco in general. If you don't see a price tag somewhere, just set a budget in your head, how much you are willing to pay for this specific item. And if you see that the price is too high, or for example, the taxis, we have a meter in Morocco. Don't go inside the taxi if you don't see that he put the meter on. So he charge you fairly. If there is some location that doesn't have a meter, you just negotiate the price with him beforehand. He tells you 100 dirham, you say no, 50. Okay, so, and then you take it from there. So
Sometimes people are uncomfortable going into that dynamic, but if you know that that's the norm, then it's okay. You'll learn how to negotiate real quick or be out of money.
Exactly.
So it's kind of an imperative there. What motivates you to travel?
I haven't traveled for a long time, so I'm gonna cry now. I haven't been out of the country for 2 years, so that's my main motivation is actually getting out of the COVID bubble. So that's my immediate motivation. In general, the motivation will be cultural or artistic aspect. I like to go to museums. I like to discover the city in a cultural aspect. That's what drives me. I like to research the artistic scene and see, that sounds very interesting. I will go to that place.
Oh, definitely. Just curiosity about cultures in general really gets us going on this podcast in various aspects. So,
and you're putting in the work now, so you can be that 40-year-old retired.
Oh my gosh!
Overall, right? So
exactly.
To look forward to.
If you only knew, I work day and night, so that 40 years old retirement plan is looking very sweet.
We touched on this a little bit during the episode, but which mode or modes of transport do you recommend for getting around Morocco?
The train and CTM are great. Rent a car as well in Morocco if you know how to drive manual cars. It's a little bit more pricey, let's say, because cars and gas in Morocco is not as cheap. I mean, similar to other countries, for example, in Egypt or Tunisia, if you have experienced that, it's not super affordable, but it's still okay. So I will go with a public bus and a train. They're great. They put you everywhere, and then taxis. Whenever you enter a taxi, make sure that there is a meter, and you'll be fine.
So is there an availability of overnight buses to get from city to city, or is it really not taking that long?
There is for some destination, yes, you have some overnight buses. In general, the CTM buses, they finish around 11 p.m.
And final question, if there was one moment that you could relive in your life, what would it be?
Oh, you know what? I was thinking about it not so long ago, and I was thinking that I would love to relive my cabin crew life with the knowledge that I have about me as a person, about countries, about people, again, one more time. But I remember all the sleepless nights and the people complaining about their drinks, and I'm like, you know what? It's okay. I'm fine. I'd rather do a financial report to my boss then.
It's always a balancing act, right? It's
yeah,
the yin and the yang.
we don't give enough credit to people who work in customer service, but honestly, to deal with human being in general on a daily basis and not lose your brain out of it, it's a really big achievement.
I feel like people would be so much nicer if they had to do 2 years of customer service, whatever that service is, but you can see from the other side what's happening and how.
And for cabin crew, it's worse because if you work in a restaurant or a cafe, you can just have a walk outside of that restaurant, or someone can take away your shifts or your table, and then you're fine. When you are in an airplane, you're assigned a zone with those customers for another 12 hours in the sky. So either you deal with that person or you deal with it. There is no other option. So you have to grow a thick skin.
We have to have you back on to talk all about your experience.
I would love to.
Yeah, we would love to shed some light on that, and maybe people will be a little bit more appreciative if the drink takes a little while, including myself.
Actually, I forgot to say one thing about Morocco, must-see places. I just remember the first and the oldest university in the world was created in Morocco, in Fes. And it was created by women, so we clap to powerful ladies. Fatima al-Fihri, she created the first university in the world. It's called University of Carawan. It's still open now for Islamic studies, and they have a big library there. And it's very, very interesting to go and visit because they have very old books that can be interesting for cultural-oriented people to see and get knowledge about.
Something to put on the list. That's right up my alley.
Fun fact.
And I was just going to say, prior to the question we were talking about customer service, I think all three of us in this conversation have customer service, and the biggest thing, experience rather, and the biggest thing is respect, and that goes a long way on the travel sphere as well, in terms of just.
That's where the sad face comes from. We all have a sad look, so. That's the trauma.
That too. But yes, it's something that translates, into the travel sphere, just going and understanding that people have a different experience than you do, whether it's in life or otherwise, and just taking that extra minute, whether it's a deep breath or collect yourself, just try to be a little bit more understanding. And that could be great for the world too, if we could all have that same mentality.
Yeah. And you should not take life too seriously. Just relax. It's okay. It's a moment. It will pass. And you'll be fine. The next day, you won't even think about it. So let's enjoy the moment.
Precisely. Well, Sahar, thank you so much for coming on today. We had a great conversation. Really enjoyed it. And look forward to seeing you in Dubai, Morocco, or some other corner of the world very soon.
I will come back for the Dubai podcast if you want.
Awesome. Yeah, and to talk about your experience in cabin crew for sure.
Right, we need that as well.
So. I hope to go to Morocco in 2022. So either way, I'll be reaching out to you for a couple more tips.
You are very much welcome. And I have a lot of places that I can recommend you, more spicy places that I can send you. You will enjoy the food, come back fat.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time again.
Thank you very much, guys.
So without further ado, here's our fun fact. Morocco actually has the highest peak in North Africa. Did not know that. And it's a little over 4,000 meters, or 13,600 some feet for our American listeners. But you really have it all in terms of beach to mountains and everything in between. Till next time.
Well, there you have it. Another fun fact about a locale unknown. Thank you, Winfield, and thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode with us. We started this podcast in the hopes of shedding some light on the various destinations out there in the world that might be more off the beaten path. And we're hoping we're accomplishing that goal by bringing on our friends and our various guests to give us some insight about their various locations and what to do in the areas. So if you like what you hear, make sure that you follow us on all the podcast platforms as well as the social media platforms out there, because we're back every single week. I wouldn't want you to miss what we have coming up. We already have a couple great guests in the pipeline that we are very excited for, and I think you guys will be too. So we are on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on Google Podcasts, we're on all the other platforms. Locales Unknown. Go ahead and hit the search. When you find us, be sure to hit the follow or subscribe button. And if you're an Apple Podcast user out there, please let us know how we're doing. We're building this for you guys. So scroll down to the bottom of Apple Podcasts and go ahead and leave us a review and maybe some comments there. Also on social media, we are very active on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook. We have our YouTube channel, so feel free to go ahead and drop us a line. We have our website, localesunknown.com. You can find all of our episodes there. And if you want to reach us directly, we have our email address, contact@localesunknown.com. Maybe you have some suggestions for us. Maybe you want to introduce us to someone that you think might be a great fit for the show. We are all ears. So once again, thank you so much for listening. We'll be right back here next week with another great episode somewhere out there in the world. Stay tuned.